Hey everyone, and welcome to Mull It Over, a show where we break down mulligans and early game plays. Instead of a specific deck, this time around we'll dive into various spots from the top 8 of Masters Tour Onyxia's Lair. First, we have Deaddraw on Burn Shaman versus Unknown on Face Hunter. By this point, it's already common knowledge that Lightning Bloom into early Wildpaw Cavern is one of the most powerful things Burn Shaman can do in any matchup. Playing Caverns turn 4 without the Bloom might feel a bit late versus Hunter, but Deaddraw still keeps it alongside removal to buy time. Landslide is excellent to deal with minions like Intrepid Initiate and Vulpertinger from Face Hunter, and is one of the most efficient ways to get through a pesky Divine Shield from Guardian Og Merchant. Meanwhile, Lightning Bolt can both activate the Landslide and help remove buffed minions. The key was on turn 4, when Deaddraw had the choice between Novice Zapper plus Landslide to fully clear, or tank a bit of damage to set up the Wildpaw Cavern. With the time he bought with the Lightning Bolt, removing an Initiate on turn 2, he has enough health to get his own board online and eventually win the race for lethal. Now taking a look at Dead 17 versus JPmixter, you wouldn't expect someone to toss Overgrowth when they're playing Kazakhstan Druid, but for specifically this token build facing Weapon Rogue, Deads realizes he most likely won't have the time to go for the usual ramp game plan. Instead, he wants to get aggressive with a full board Glowfly Swarm as soon as possible, given that Weapon Rogue has no mass removal. Coining out Overgrowth on turn 3 would still technically allow you to play Glowfly on turn 4, however, it's 2 spells expended from the hand, which probably means you don't get all of the Glowflies. Even with the possibility of clean mana expenditure with turn 1 coin draw spell into another draw spell on turn 2, he saves the coin to make sure the Glowfly can come out on turn 4. With the Guess the Wait on turn 2 pulling 2 draws, Deads is able to get the full 7 tokens even with a non-spell card drawn beforehand, putting him in a very strong position versus the Rogue. Moving on to Miracle Priest, Lovestorm shows us the ABCs by keeping Palm Reading and Nazmani Bloodweaver, both auto-keeps regardless of matchup and whether or not you have the coin. Against Youth's Fell Demon Hunter, the version without the quest, Lovestorm is under threat of neither early minion pressure nor hand disruption from Glide, so he's at liberty to greed as many discounts from Palm Reading as he likes, then build a huge board with Nazmani. There are matchups where the Priest has to get going a lot quicker though, like versus Kazakhstan Druid, which given enough time can easily wipe your board regardless of stats, with Wand of Disintegration, Vampiric Fangs, or Krusty the Crustacean. So Judgment, with the coin, goes for the more unusual keep of Gift of Luminance to complement the Nazmani he already has. In this case, it makes perfect sense to coin out Nazmani on 2. Unless Lovestorm has a specific combination of 2 cards in hand such as Lunar Eclipse or Lightning Bloom plus Feral Rage or Moontouched Amulet, the Nazmani cannot be removed. As expected, the Nazmani sticks around for Judgment to immediately protect and copy it with Gift of Luminance, setting up for big discount potential, especially if he draws the many cheap spells in his deck. Finally, let's take a look at some of the Alwarlock games from our top 8. The most common keeps for this deck regardless of matchup are Ruined Mithril Rod and Tour Guide, and in the case of Tour Guide, it's most often played on turn 1 for an immediate life tap, followed up by another tap on turn 2. However, we see Deaddraw on 2 separate instances skip a possible turn 1 Tour Guide. The first was versus Unknown's Shadow Priest, where because Unknown had played a Frazzled Freshman that could easily challenge the Tour Guide, Deaddraw keeps it in hand as a guaranteed target for Grimoire of Sacrifice later on. If Unknown's turn 1 play had been Peasant, however, Tour Guide turn 1 to challenge it would have made a lot more sense. Deaddraw's patience pays off on turn 3, where the Tour Guide plus Mortal Coil and Grimoire allows him to clear most of Unknown's pressure, while still maintaining the coin in hand. I asked Deaddraw himself and he told me this was actually a close call, with just coining out Hysteria this turn on the 2-5, which most likely would have kept the Cult Neophyte alive and out of the Raise Dead pool. Fortunately for him, there was no Raise Dead, allowing him to get a very clean removal turn and finally use the coin to cement his control of the board. Now the second time Deaddraw kept Tour Guide unplayed on turn 1 was versus Judgment on the Quest Fell Demon Hunter, a very complex matchup due to the Warlock's constant fear of Glide. When you play Tour Guide on turn 1, you're pretty much committed to tapping right away so you can spend your mana on tap again on turn 2. And Deaddraw explained that he would rather keep the 0 mana tap from Tour Guide banked for a post-Glide situation. With this line, he was likely planning to tap and then play Tour Guide on turn 3, but with the draw of School Spirits, he prioritizes removing that card from his hand, as he would rather draw Tour Guide back in case the Glide was coming. By turn 4, he finally finds Rune Mithril Rod, and with his turn 5 set in stone, he finally plays Tour Guide and Touch of the Nathrism while a target is guaranteed. The 0 mana tap being saved for the Rod can help speed up the discount procs if necessary. Youth on his Alwarlock also shows the power of keeping Dreadlich Tamsin, the perfect follow-up to Rune Mithril Rod on turn 5 as long as you have the hand space. Even against the non-Glowfly version of Kazakusan Druid, the Tamsin hero card has clear potential against Scale of Onyxia and Locusts, just as Youth demonstrates for a very clean turn 6. And that's all for this episode. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you after the next Masters Tour.